All right. Welcome, J.R. Dukes at your service. We are now live. I appreciate everybody taking time to join me today. We have a lot to talk about, a lot of breaking news going on right now. I've been all over this Fani Willis case. Welcome, everybody, as you're filing in, by the way. I appreciate you joining me, as I always appreciate everybody joining me. We have got some breaking news that is just now starting to trickle out. There's not really a lot of people talking about it, but I have found something on Breitbart News that we're going to get into right away. There are a few people on X platform that have mentioned this, and when I first heard it, I thought to myself, if this pans out to be true, this is going to literally blow this case wide open because the allegation is extremely salacious, and we're going to jump into it here in just 1 second. I did want to make a few housekeeping notes real quick. Obviously, if you choose to make a comment, which I encourage you to do, please put your questions, whatever, in the comments below. I love to answer questions. I'm sure you got some questions. Go ahead and drop them in there. I just ask that you be respectful. We want to have a PG type of conversation around here. We don't want to have a lot of nastiness or trolling or any type of drama. And generally, most of y'all are really good at that. So I appreciate everybody abiding by that. Also wanted to point out that later on, we're going to try something new, and that is with the software that I'm using, you can join the chat. Maybe you'd like to join and tell me your point of view. We maybe can discuss a few things, or maybe you just have a few questions you'd like to answer. Well, I'm here and I'm happy to help you in any way I possibly can. So, without further ado, I want to say hello to a few of you that are already recognized in the chat. I appreciate, like I said, everybody joining me. I think everybody can hear me fine. Welcome to Facebook and Twitch, and of course YouTube, and then everybody on the X platform. I appreciate y'all all joining today. Okay, we're going to start jumping right into it. Let's just go ahead and take a quick peek at an overview right here. I want to minimize myself just so we can take a quick peek at my screen so you get an idea. The first story we're going to go over is what I just mentioned, and that is if this pans out to be true, according to Breitbart.com. And of course, you may or may not be familiar with Breitbart. They are a rather conservative, to put it bluntly, I should say, to put it mildly, they are a very ultra conservative type of newspaper outlet, news outlet, whatever you want to call them. I believe Steve Bannon is the individual that heads up this company. You can go ahead and put it in the comments below if you know otherwise, but I believe Steve Bannon is the individual that's doing that. Hello, Megan. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, wake you up. Okay, I'll definitely do that. There was a hearing, by the way, in the Fani Willis case. I have not heard nothing, and trust me, I have been focused on this like a laser. There was a meeting inside Judge Scott McAfee's, what they call in camera. And basically, as we've talked about before, in camera simply means in private, in the judge's chambers. They had a meeting involving the main witness that they're trying to put the screw to get him to talk. And remember, that guy, his name is Bradley. I'm going to pull his exact name up so we have it. Yeah, Terrence Bradley. This is the guy that was the former law partner of Nathan Wade, and he is, to say the least, not really forthcoming with the information. He doesn't want to say anything. Yet at first, when he started talking to Ashley Merchant, and of course, I'm conflating everything. I'm just putting all these little pieces that we've been talking about for a long time now. I'm taking all these pieces and I'm going to put it together in a story for you as far as the way that I interpret the situation to date. So here's what I believe has happened. You have Ashley Merchant, this fine, wonderful, extremely intelligent attorney that represents Michael Roman. And of course, Michael Roman is one of the defendants in this ongoing saga of these Trump cases, specifically this RICO case brought by the scandalous DA out of Fulton County, Georgia, Fani Willis, who has been accused and now has admitted to having an adult relationship. And we know what we mean by adult relationship with the guy she hired and paid up to $1 million to handle this RICO case, Nathan Wade. Well, remember, Michael Roman was never indicted by this grand jury, but that didn't stop Fani Willis from going after him. Fani Willis went ahead and indicted him anyways. I mean, don't let the facts or what the grand jury thinks get in the way. So she went ahead and ran him over, so to speak, indicted him in this RICO case. And now it turns out that he had the good fortune of hiring Ashley Merchant, and Ashley Merchant started drilling down and found out that Nathan Wade filed for divorce from his wife of 26 years the day after, yes, the day after he inked this contract with Fulton County DA Fani Willis. And Fani Willis didn't even go to the Board of Commissioners to get approval to hire the special counsel like she was supposed to under the laws there in Fulton County government. Again, Fani Willis doesn't want the truth interfere with her diatribe or the way she wants to try to put out the facts as she sees it. What has been exposed is nothing short of a corruption scheme, corruption by Fani Willis and her associates. I think it's just that simple. There's not too much more to really drill down. But what I think is going on with Bradley is, at first, as it turns out, when he was contacted by Ashley Merchant, he's like, hey, I would like to talk. Sure. What it turns out is that when Bradley left, Terrence Bradley left the law firm with Wade, they didn't leave on good terms. The allegations, if they're true, are that not only did he have a sexual relation, and I'm talking, so I want to be really clear, I'm talking about Terrence Bradley, the former law partner of Nathan Wade. Not only did he have a sexual relationship with some individual in the office. And listen, let's be straight up about it. Sexual relationships with people that you work with, well, that's pretty common. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Generally, the people you're going to end up having relationships with is generally going to be people you work with, people that is in your orbit, so to speak. It's just the way it is. It's just human nature. And I don't think that surprises many of us. Obviously, if you're married, you should not be engaging in that type of behavior. But, that's another subject for another day. But it gets better. It's not just that he had a relationship. Oh, there's one caveat. If you're the boss, it's not a good idea to have a relationship with somebody that's your subordinate. That can get you into legal hot water. Specifically, I would say it's more common to have civil issues with that. But unfortunately for Mr. Bradley, the problem that he ran into, Terrence Bradley, make sure I got the names correct there. The problem for him is, if the allegations are true, is let's just say one of the episodes was with someone who claimed it was not consensual. So I don't really know what you call it other than the R word. And for monetization reasons, I will not say the word, but we know what we're talking about. So eventually what happened is he agreed to leave the law firm. And as you can imagine, having a personal relationship when you have other law partners is not a good idea. It's a terrible idea. And there's consequences to this type of behavior. And of course, Mr. Bradley paid those consequences. What I think happened when he first talked to Ashley Merchant is he's like, oh, good. I got a way I can get back at Nathan Wade. And then once he made these text messages saying what we all know to be true, and that is that him and Fani Willis have had a long-standing adult relationship, and of course, we know what we're talking about here, he had second thoughts. He got cold feet. He did not want to rat out his former partner. And that's what we witnessed on the stand all of last week. I mean, it's been going on for quite some time now. The judge has been real slow. Matter of fact, it was a week before last. And the judge has been really slow about trying to address all these issues and trying to get to the bottom of this. And I want to tell you one thing, too. The judge is rather young. He's only 34 years old. He was just recently appointed to the bench, if you can believe that, by the governor there. I think it's Brian Kemp in the state of Georgia. One of his first cases randomly selected was this case. Lucky for him, right? I mean, you talk about pulling up the short end right at the beginning. I kind of feel for the guy in some way. I mean, you have someone as powerful, unfortunately, as Fani Willis. These are individuals you work with, you're newer to the job, and you get handed this type of case. This has to be something absolutely terrible from his point of view. But at any rate, that's kind of where we're at right now. I think what's going to happen is the judge knows what's going on. The judge knows that not everything is attorney-client privilege, like Terrence Bradley is trying to say it is. He knows it. He knows that Bradley is in all likelihood trying to say everything is covered under attorney-client privilege, therefore I don't have to speak. And that's just a bunch of you know what. And the judge knows that too. I really don't know which way the judge is going to go on this, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, because there is a lot of complicating factors. We know the truth of what's going on. We know that it just smells of corruption. It smells of what's called honest service fraud. It smells of the obvious that Fani Willis tried to make a name for herself by becoming famous, wealthy, by paying her boyfriend $1 million. And then by proxy, or maybe even directly, the money flows back to her through vacations, through meals, through whatever. And she knows she's benefited from this prosecution. And that is corruption. Just plain and simple, it's corruption. At a minimum, there is the appearance of corruption. And of course, Fani Willis would say, oh, no, that's just simply not the case. I was paid back. I paid Nathan Wade back everything in cash. I never benefited, not one time, not one dime. And of course, she doesn't have any receipts to show cash coming out of the bank, going into the bank. She doesn't have any receipts from Nathan Wade for paying for reimbursing him, nor does Nathan Wade have any funds in and out of the bank. And of course, we should already know the reason that Fani Willis did not put money in and out of the bank and had so much cash on her. Well, I don't know. I should have known this all along. It's because she's black. That's not me saying it. That's her saying it. That's what she said. Because she's black, she keeps a lot of money with her at the house. So, but anyway, I don't want to go off on too many tangents, but I got one other thing to add to this corruption story. If the allegation is true, Joe Biden, hear me clearly. We've known the White House has been colluding with all these little lawsuits against former President Donald Trump. Now we have another report stating that an individual that I'm about to identify is a plant by the Biden administration designed to focus on Fani Willis and steer her in the direction that she's been going, indicting former President Donald Trump and engaging in prima facie election interference. It's just that simple. And we're gonna dive into the article right now, and then we're going to get into a few other things here. Hello, everybody. Joe, thanks for stopping by. Dawn, what question do you got? My question is, yeah, Megan, thanks. Okay, I'll start answering questions here in just a little bit. We'll go through all these and take a peek. So again, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. So as we can see on my screen here, we got this first article. I got some YouTube videos. I think Megan Kelly has been all over this story. This individual right here in the middle of the screen, this is, I believe his name, John Holloway. He's been a commentator on her program and some other programs, and he is right on the nose when it comes to some of his observations about this particular case. Specifically, I'm talking about the Fani Willis case in Fulton County, Georgia. He is a practicing attorney. I believe he has an office in Cobb County, Georgia, which is essentially Marietta, Georgia, for those of y'all who may not be familiar with that particular area. And matter of fact, here is Terrence Bradley walking into court this morning, or I should say early this afternoon, to talk to Judge Scott McAfee. In chambers, in camera, which we just talked about means secretly. Now, the other big news of today, huge news that has been going on the last few days. As you can see, we got some YouTube videos here. We'll see how far along we get through all these. But basically, the investigators, this one investigator in particular, working for former President Donald Trump, man, has he taken the goods that Ashley Merchant has given him and ran with it. And folks, I told you the other day, I don't think they're releasing everything that they got right now. I think they're just dripping it. I heard someone refer to it as, you give someone enough rope, they'll hang themselves. And I think that's exactly what we've been witnessing, because way back at the beginning of this hearing, if you notice, who's the attorney for President Trump, that Steve Sato, he was asking specific questions to Nathan Wade and DA Fani Willis, essentially questions to this effect. Are you sure that you were not at Fani Willis's residence between such and such dates? What if we had records that said you were there? Would those records be wrong? And of course, Nathan Wade specifically said, no, the records would be wrong. These guys are supposed to be professional attorneys, especially Fani Willis. They prosecute all types of white-collar criminals, people for perjury. They should know better. You don't answer questions like this, folks. You just don't do it. If you're ever in a situation like this, trust me on this here, you need to take advantage of your Fifth Amendment right pursuant to the United States Constitution and shut the hell up. It's just that simple. The way you say it, you don't say, oh, I would like to exercise my right against self-incrimination, because that just sounds like you're a criminal. All you say is, I'll be exercising my right pursuant to the Fifth Amendment to remain silent. That's all you say. I choose to remain silent. The other way, it just sounds more crooked. And again, I don't want to get off on a tangent. I have videos on this if you're interested, or you could drop me an email if you have a specific question. But I will state that the way the rules are today, the way the law is now, the way the case law is via the Supreme Court, you have to assert that right if and when you're ever questioned by law enforcement. You can't just sit there and say nothing. They can still continue to hammer you with questions and just basically make your life a living hell. You have to articulate in words that you will be remaining silent pursuant to your constitutional rights. Generally, the every state that I know of also has essentially the same rights in the state constitution, but the big one is to hammer that Fifth Amendment that I just told you about in the United States Constitution. Anyway, that's just your public service announcement from J.R. Dukes for everyone today. I hope you find that informative, because you'd be surprised. A lot of people don't know that. There was a case out of Texas, Salinas versus the state of Texas from, I don't know, it's been about 10, 11 years now. It was, if I remember right, it was some guy charged in double or triple homicide. And this is where all this stems from. The Supreme Court came back and said, no, because apparently the guy just sat there silently, didn't answer questions. And his lawyers were trying to say he exercised his right to remain silent, and yet they continued to do this, and this. And, make a long story short, you have to articulate that you will be remaining silent. Okay, so moving on. We have it pictured right here, the Breitbart article, and the way they have it here. Exclusive Biden administration planted operative, and here is the individual's name, Jeff, and I believe it's pronounced DiSantis, just like Governor DeSantis. That's the way the spelling or the speaking application says it, and that's what they say in the article. Okay, Jeff DiSantis in Fani Willis's office to target Trump, sources say. So we're going to be diving deep in that particular article. It's just a fascinating read. We also have a picture right here, so you can see what this guy looks like. Here is Fani Willis, DA Fani Willis, right here in the middle. You see prosecutor Nathan Wade to her left, and to her right is this DeSantis guy, the Jeff DiSantis right here. We're going to read a bio of Jeff DiSantis because I want you to get an idea of exactly who this guy is. It is kind of weird, in my opinion, this guy even works in this particular office, because this guy has one impressive resume. He just looks really fishy. Take a look at this photo right here that I clipped. New evidence in the Willis-Wade relationship. Now, a quick review. Remember this. Both have sworn under oath that their sexual relationship did not start prior to Nathan Wade accepting the contract offered to him by Fani Willis to be the prosecutor on this Trump RICO matter. All right, so you want to burn that in your mind. November 1st, 2021. So anything before that is essentially going to be perjury. And it's important to also remember, this case has gone beyond just perjury. They're going to wish at some day in the near future, they're going to be begging, hoping, praying that it was only perjury. And why do I say that? Because this has moved from perjury to basically fraud on the court. It has moved from perjury to clearly corruption. And they're active, working together to commit a fraud on the court. You talk about a RICO case, you talk about racketeering, internally corrupt organizations, you talk about working together with another party or parties in order to bring about some kind of felonious activity. That is called Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. That's what they're doing right now. There very well may be a RICO case here, but it's not on the side of former President Donald Trump. It's on their side, their corruption. This is a woman like Letitia James in New York City, ran on a platform that she was going to be, first of all, she also ran on a platform that she was going to take down Trump and investigate this terrible wrongdoing back from 2020 when he tried to steal the election or whatever she was alleging. She also said that, unlike her predecessor, she would not be sleeping with the employees. She would be acting in a moral capacity so that they would not be facing lawsuits. And she would do this and do that. And of course, she lied. That just did not happen. Oh, by the way, if you're interested in what her excuse is by sleeping with Nathan Wade, the excuse she gives is Nathan Wade is not an employee. And, that's just so disingenuous. And it's just so infuriating to hear someone say that, because technically, under the law, by the spirit and letter of the law, he would be an independent contractor because he is not a full-time employee with taxes and stuff like that taken out. That's just a way to get around trying not to be caught up in a perjury trap or trying to say she didn't break her promise. But that's just nonsense. All right, let's take a look at this here. New evidence. What it is the Trump's investigator went out, and we'll talk about in a minute how he got these records. Folks, if you're going to commit a crime nowadays, you better really know what you're doing, because there's just too many things going on to get away with a crime. And I mean, I think that's probably good. We don't want to be falsely accused of a crime. The cell phone spies on all of us. It's just the way it is. And they got the records prior to this November 1st, 2021 date. Remember, he signed November 1st, 2021. He divorced his wife November 2nd, 2021. This evidence says that there was 35 times Nathan Wade's phone ping near Willis's home between the January and November 2021. And what they mean is November 1st, 2021. 2,000 voice calls, 10,000 text messages, and 12,000 total interactions. Eventually, we're going to know what the nature of those text messages are. I don't know how there's any way we will not find this out at some point in the future. Folks, I got to tell you, my girlfriend and I, we've been together now 5+ years. I love her dearly. There's no doubt about that. But I can assure you, we do not text 10,000 times between January and November 2021. That's a lot of text messages. That's a lot of voice calls. And 2,000 voice calls? Tell me in the comments, does anybody talk to their significant other that many times? Am I right about this? Am I wrong? I mean, that is a lot of that. That's a lot. 10,000 text messages. Wow. That's a lot of texting. Must be like all day. Hey, baby, how you doing? Oh, you look good. Send me a photo. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It seems like a lot. One commentator, as you see in this box right here, I think it was Holloway that made this comment. And he's referring to, and we're going to go through the papers here in a few minutes, but he's referring to the comment in defense of Fani Willis that Fani Willis put in her documents. He was saying that any drug dealer that she tries in the future, or frankly, any drug dealer that is ever tried in the future, should use the exact same excuse Fani Willis is using. And here's her excuse. The records do nothing more than demonstrate that Special Prosecutor Wade's telephone was located somewhere within a densely populated multiple-mile radius where various residents, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, and other businesses are located, Willis's motion said. Interesting. It's always fascinating to see someone who was on one side of the law, all of a sudden they're trying to use everything they know on the other side of the law. So if you ever get in trouble pertaining to your cell phone, you might want to take a quick notes right here. Here's the Trump's investigator's name, this Charles Middlestad. This guy is good. He's as good or better than any cop on the beat, or I should say an investigator on the beat that's actually doing his job. This guy is fantastic, and hopefully we'll have more time to talk about him. We have the items I want to try to get through tonight as much as possible. May have to have several little versions of this conversation, but we'll get through them one way or the other. We have the documentation pertaining to what this first one is Nathan Wade. And the funny thing is, Nathan probably has regrets even filing this in light of everything else that has happened since, let's say, Saturday. He filed this last Friday, and he's basically telling the judge, hey, Judge, I got some extra information pertaining to the text messages that are found on Terrence Bradley's phone, and basically you can't look at them. Yeah, that's basically what he tells the judge. You can't look at him. Here's the reason why. And then we're going to move on to what we call Defense Exhibit 38. And this is essentially the affidavit filed by Donald Trump's investigator, this Charles Middlestad guy we just said. And then he filed a correction. I don't see much of a difference, but I'm sure there's some subtle difference. That's the main document we're going to go over as far as the affidavit is concerned. We also have the state's objection. This is basically Fani Willis saying, in part, what we just read a minute ago, that you basically can't trust this data pertaining to the cell phones. And like I said, we're going to do a deeper dive on this, so you'll get all the juice and all the information on this. And then finally, President Trump went ahead and made another supplemental reply to their actual state's objection. It's just the standard operating order that they do, that they conduct these type of things. You file, respond. If you want, you can amend the pleadings by filing just that, an amended pleading or whatever the particular case may be. So that's pretty well where we're at. And we're going to take a second. We're going to drill right down into that. And if y'all have not heard me earlier, the thing I want to try today that I think will be a lot of fun, this software allows me, I think I can have 10 individuals viewing or just having a chat with me at one particular time, and I think up to 25 can be held in the bullpen, so to speak. So if you're interested in chatting with me tonight and going over your viewpoint or just make a comment in general, be prepared. Basically, you're going to need a Chrome extension. You have to do this on Google Chrome. So if you don't have Google Chrome, you might want to take a second and put that on your computer. But essentially, once I publish the link, all you got to do is click on that link. It will have a sign-in sheet. You basically just sign in. You don't have to have fancy software. All you got to do is have a webcam. Have a webcam that works and have some kind of microphone. It doesn't have to be a fancy microphone that's sticking in my face. You can just have like a headset like I got on the side right here. Just as long as we can hear you, as long as we can see you, we'll be in good shape. So if you're interested in that, feel free to get ready to chat. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I've seen other channels do stuff like this, and I thought it looked like a fun thing to do. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I want to take things slow and learn exactly what I'm doing as far as the software goes. I'm not a computer idiot by any stretch of imagination, but I'd like to, it's no fun when you make a mistake with 100 and some people watching. The other day we had 1,400 people or something like that in the chat. It's for whatever reason, I don't normally get embarrassed or get shy, but if something major happens, sometimes it can be like, you just kind of freeze, and I don't want to do that. So we're just going to try it one little step at a time. So at any rate, let me switch over, and we are going to go ahead and jump right into this particular article. So the other news today, too, that I wanted just to touch on that I think is very important. Did y'all have a chance to see the Supreme Court? They are hearing a very important case today that liberals and the conservatives were having a very difficult time trying to iron out. It is a case involving the internet. And you remember how they banned Donald Trump off of the then Twitter platform, which, of course, is now called X. And the situation there was, it's not fair. It's not right. We all have free speech, but it's not that simple. There's free speech that we have, and then at the same time, a private company has free speech rights. It's really difficult because there's standards used for newspapers, but the internet is not really a newspaper. So it was an interesting thing to listen to today. They went on for like 4 hours back and forth with questions, and it's really hard to see how they're going to come out in this particular case. A lot of times you can listen to the Supreme Court and exactly what's going on, and you can kind of get an idea of what's transpiring. But in this situation, it was just very difficult to get a read on that. So, all right, here we go. Breitbart. We're going to tear right into it right now. Let's see what my friends have to say here. Let me make sure I got this blown up a little bit, so that we can all see this. Okay, I think that's probably going to be our best bet right there. Okay, exclusive Biden administration. And by the way, if you see me looking out to the side, it's not me trying to be rude. It's just I got several monitors right here so that I can read it appropriately and reference everything accordingly. I'm sure y'all I'm sure you'll understand. One of these days I'll have an assistant. Maybe things will be a little easier and I won't have to juggle everything at one time. So anyway, exclusive. Biden administration planted operative Jeff DiSantis in Fani Willis's office to target Trump, sources say. And again, right here in the middle is DeSantis. It's not the same DeSantis, obviously, here in my great state of Florida. It's not Ron DeSantis. It's Jeff DeSantis. And to my knowledge, there's no relation. The names are not even spelled the same. Here's sweet Fani Willis. And then, of course, we all recognize former President Donald Trump. By the way, his victory was pretty sweet the other day in South Carolina, and you still got bird brain hanging in there. What is that about? You know, I used to somewhat like her, but I have really lost all respect for her just kind of sticking around like that. But anyway, the Biden administration planted a Democratic operative. And folks, if this is true, this is probably going to be a bigger story than the Fani Willis story to date in and of itself. This would be prima facie election interference. I mean, this would be something like Watergate, if you want to know my opinion. I mean, it's not the same as someone breaking into an office. Am I right about that? Imagine if this is true. The White House took a Democratic operative quietly, secretly, put him in that office in proximity to Fani Willis so that the White House would have a direct and covert way of influencing and guiding Fani Willis to make the decisions they wanted, so it would affect Donald Trump's ability to run for office. This is salacious, right? All right, moving on. The Biden administration planted a Democratic operative inside a Fulton County office to target former President Donald Trump. Multiple sources familiar with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office exclusively told Breitbart News. If the Biden administration planted the operative, as the sources say, it would present a strong argument that the administration interfered in the 2024 presidential election. You think? Yeah, well, that's the understatement of this entire conversation, right? Breitbart News granted the sources anonymity to discuss the attorney's office for fear of retribution. The sources have direct knowledge of the environment at the district attorney's office, which they categorized as corrupt. Yeah, that's another understatement, right? One significant figure is overlooked in the Fulton County scandal concerning Fulton County prosecutor Fani Willis and her alleged lover. It's not really alleged anymore. They both have admitted their relationship. Her alleged lover with fellow prosecutor Nathan Wade. The source said, meets Jeff DiSantis, his current title is the Deputy District Attorney with professional experience far greater than the average county employee. DeSantis worked on Williams' 2020 campaign, sources told Breitbart News, and was the former executive director of the Democratic Party of Georgia with extensive knowledge of campaign finance law. He was also the deputy director of compliance for DNC, according to his official bio. And we'll drill down on that here in a minute. Jeff has also worked for candidates in 30 states running for a variety of offices, including President of the United States Senator, Governor, United States Representative, Attorney General, District Attorney, and Mayor, as well as for a national political party committee. He has served as a campaign manager, media consultant, pollster, press spokesman, research director, and policy advisor. Again, this is him to Fani Willis's right. This is a very well-planted, if it's true, a very high-sourced, well-planted, knowledgeable. This guy's a power broker. Let's just be straight up about it. This guy, you talk about deep state, this is deep state stuff here, folks. That's what this is. You want to know what the deep state looks like? It looks like this dude right here. It's Jeff DiSantis. It says on the caption, it says, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis speaks during a news conference at the Fulton County Government Building on Wednesday, August 14, 2023 in Atlanta, Georgia. All right. Sources credit DeSantis with colluding with the White House to target Trump. DeSantis did this, one source told Breitbart News about the Trump case. He's the one. He's the one pulling all the strings. He was the one that walked over to Willis walked her off, Willis. He was in every important meeting. He is the brainchild behind this. This is the connection to the White House. And folks, as a caveat, I would definitely want to point out to you, remember from the discovery proceedings that have happened to date, there are documented facts and documented invoices showing that Nathan Wade went to the White House. We're not exactly sure who he met with, but he charged like for the whole 24 hours on a particular day. I believe he was there 2 or 3 days, if my memory serves me, in a row. Who would he be talking to that long for that length of time over this one case? Obviously, the implication here is this is more evidence of what we already know and believe, that there is obvious colluding. It is so ironic how they go after President Donald Trump for trying to steal the election, for election interference, or whatever they want to pull out of their backside that particular day. The only election interference going on is what we're discussing right now, is the obvious political interference by the current President Joe Biden, or at least whoever the individuals are that are handling Joe Biden. Because let's be honest about it, we don't really know who's handling the stuff for President Biden, because he cannot be doing what he should be doing. He just obviously, it's not age, by the way. It's not age. I'm tired of hearing that. This is not age. This has to do solely with capability. I don't care if the guy is 35 or if the guy is 95. It has to do with how's his brain functioning. And I would venture to tell you Donald Trump is firing on all his cylinders. His brain obviously works better than my brain. I can almost assure you of that. So, at any rate, okay. I think it's important because this particular paragraph is everything. I mean, this is what this is what these sources are telling Breitbart, that this is the plant and this is what he is personally responsible for doing. All right, citing his deep history and connections to the Democratic machine. That's a good way to put it. To the Democratic Georgia machine, sources told Breitbart News they were 100% certain that DeSantis was the inside man planted in the Fulton County office by the Biden administration. DeSantis is the one pulling the strings on this whole thing, a second source said. Everybody heard Fani testify. There is no secret. There is no secret that she's not smart. Yeah, isn't that another understatement? Were you struck by how unintelligent she sounded? Now, my English is not perfect, and it is definitely not as good as it used to be when I was younger necessarily. But this is a woman that is allegedly highly educated. She carries a degree in law, the jurisprudence law. She has a lot of experience, and the things that she has said on that stand, what is all of that about? All right. That is how she sounds and acts every day of the week. Anyone that has common sense knows that the White House has been involved in this prosecution, a source told Breitbart News. This shouldn't just miraculously happen. Of course, she, Willis, is not going to prosecute the former president of the United States without the current administration's approval. I believe that too. I just don't see Fani Willis, even though she thinks she's all that, even though she's all about the power and the money, I don't see a prosecutor from Fulton County, Georgia, that is rather new in office. I mean, she was just elected a year or 2 years ago, whatever it has been now, and she goes after the former president of the United States. I mean, I just don't see it. Not without special permission from people higher up in the party, specifically the current president of the United States. I would want to know that the president had my back, or at least his administration had my back, before I went off and tried to charge a former president of the United States, one of the most powerful men in the world, at least one of the former most powerful men in the world, that is in all likelihood going to be the next president of the United States, charge him with a crime on a state level that he cannot pardon himself out of. I mean, that would, I just can't see that happening without the White House blessing. That's just my opinion. I just don't see it. You agree? Disagree? Tell me. Hey, welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining, my friend. All right. Sources also revealed that DeSantis was a member of Willis's transition team after she won the election in November 2020. DeSantis helped Wade select employees for the new office. DeSantis was there in the capacity to be a political strategist, hiding in the DA's office, a source told Breitbart News. Well, really? That's interesting. Okay, I meant, again, it's just more of what we already know to be true. As Breitbart News exclusively reported Sunday, Wade is a prosecutor on the Trump case, and he selected the office employees. A source told the news Wade made the decision to hire or fire employees in the district attorney's office following Willis's election victory in November 2020, according to multiple sources familiar with the Wade and Willis relationship. Remember, the first witness at this evidentiary hearing the week before last, the lady that was there, her name escapes me right now, but she was the former friend, not best friend, but definitely a former friend, a former college roomie of the district attorney, Fani Willis. She's the one that says unequivocally that she saw Fani Willis and Nathan Wade together prior to 2021. As a matter of fact, it was 2019, and saw them holding hands, kissing, acting in a way that only lovers act. I mean, it's straight up, that's what she said. And of course, Fani Willis didn't particularly like that. And that's why she was so aggravated and walked into court with her dress on backwards. She was just itching to get to that microphone. So the plot thickens more. All right, moving on here. The revelation of Wade's previously unreported position as the former as his unreported position as the former personnel decision maker for the district attorney's office raises ethical and conflicts of interest concerns. It also raises questions whether Wade and Willis have been forthright about the timeline of the reported affair. Sources describe one-on-one interviews behind closed doors with Willis and Wade, who was too invested to be just friends, of Willis to hold such a powerful position. It was obvious Willis and Wade had an affair in 2020, 1 year before Willis launched her probe into Trump. Interesting choice of wording, but we'll move on. And DeSantis would know about it, sources revealed to the news. Okay, the district attorney's office did not reply to a request for comment from Breitbart News about DeSantis's allegations of involvement between the White House and Trump's prosecution. In January, Trump and co-defendant Mike Roman accused Willis of maintaining an improper romantic relationship with Wade. Willis and Wade took the stand in February to testify about whether the relationship disqualified Willis from prosecuting Trump if the presiding judge determines that Willis engaged in an actual conflict of interest with her lover, and former prosecutor Willis could be removed from the case, handing the former President Donald Trump a massive victory. Yes, that is exactly what can happen. Wade's story appears shaky. Former Fulton County District Attorney employee and friend of Willis since college, Robin Yurty. This is the woman we were just discussing. Robin Yurty. I hope I'm saying the name right. You can see it right here. That was the older black lady. Well, she has to be about the same age as Fani Willis, so she's probably just about my age, 54, 55. Robin Yurty, she's the one that testified that Willis was definitely in a relationship with Wade since 2019. Boom, that's what I just was discussing with everybody. In addition, and here's the kicker. In addition, cell phone data obtained from AT&T through subpoena contradicts Wade's testimony. Ain't that something? Busted. They cannot be sleeping very well if you catch my drift. I meant that. Man, well, what can you say? I knew when this first happened, when this first came down, that they were going to keep digging, and I knew it was going to get more ugly and more risky for everyone that's involved in this. And at some point, the employees, the people that are standing behind Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, at some point, they have to be looking at the mirror and thinking to themselves, do I want to stay on this train? These people have got caught. Am I going to put my freedom, my reputation, my money, my job, my family's ability to be taken care of? Am I going to stand behind these two that are clearly engaging in perjury, that are actively trying to defraud the court? Am I going to continue to stand behind them? And with me, it would be no way, no way. And they have to be thinking this to themselves, that I'm no longer going to keep buying her lies. Their lies. I mean, this is not even close. What's also interesting about this, I've looked at some other channels and just other news clips. Something that strikes me is normally Fanny is trying to play the race card all the time. And sometimes that works. Let's be honest about it. A lot of times, some of these black leaders that are not setting a good example for other young boys and girls of all colors, they stand behind this race card like it's the race is the problem that they have. And they just hide behind this and play the victim. Well, surfing around, it's very clear that even the black community is not believing this. I mean, they're like, "What you talking about, Willis?" Anybody remember that show from years ago? I used to love that show. But seriously, they are not even buying this. They know it's crazy, it's nonsense, and they're not pleased with her behavior and what she's doing to the court. Everybody understands the rule of law is extremely important in our country. Even in the Bible, it's very clear God does not like anybody that bears false witness against their neighbor. That's one of the 10 commandments. That's the reason why it is such a serious crime to commit perjury. Because, friends, I'm telling you, just like the great Roman Empire, one of the many reasons the great Roman Empire fell was corruption. And in part, it's this type of corruption. It's political figures not being held accountable when they violate the public trust. When you have the public trust in your hands, you are held to a completely different standard. And I don't like to see anybody in a cage. I don't like to see anybody in this type of legal jeopardy. But the reality of the matter is, what did they expect was going to happen when they went after President Donald Trump and all these other people? This woman literally has been trying to take grandmother and grandfathers, just little peons of people, if you will, and put them in a cage for 20 years. As we've discussed often on this program, the RICO laws in the state of Georgia are very clear, friends. If you are convicted on a RICO case, it is a minimum mandatory 20 years in prison. There is no downward departure. The judge has no discretion. The judge must sentence you to a minimum of 20 years. And you're thinking, oh, well, you can get out for good time. Nowadays the states, you serve one day, you get credited 10. It doesn't work like that. With these RICO laws, 20 years means 20 years. You can circle the day you go in, count 20 years, and that's the day you should get out if you survive the 20 years. That's just the way it is with these type laws. They've taken out what judges are supposed to do and use their brain to come up with an intelligent decision as to what the punishment should be. And here's one other thing to know about this RICO law, at least in the state of Georgia. The governor there, Governor Brian Kemp, well, you might be thinking to yourself, hey, it's no big deal. If Trump or anybody was to be convicted, then the governor can simply go ahead and pardon Donald Trump or pardon anybody else. That would be false. And the reason for that is because in the state of Georgia, the governor does have power to pardon an individual, but only after 5 years. That's right. The prisoner would have to serve 5 years and then go through a procedure. It's a complicated, convoluted procedure. And then at that point, the governor might be able to pardon them if he chose to. But at a minimum, they would be serving 5+ years of hard time. I mean, and we're just assuming that there would be a pardon. There's no one to say that there would be a pardon if that was to happen. Furthermore, you have somebody that is President Trump's age. Let's just walk this through. 20 years is a life sentence. I mean, that's what this is. And I've also had Democratic friends of mine say something to the effect of, well, the problem here is that Donald Trump did things during the election or at the end of the election that he shouldn't have done. He was trying to steal it by making these slates of electors and all this other stuff. Well, to my surprise, and this may or may not surprise you, the laws are not really clear on how elections are conducted. There is no standardized law pertaining to the way elections are handled. They're generally left up to the individual states. I mean, there are some overriding laws that what you can and can't do, but within that framework, the states are free to do whatever they want. And sometimes making another slate of electors can be legal and possible. I don't know why it does the fireworks like that. I think that's a function of the Apple system. But if you see random stuff happening, don't worry about it too much. It just is what it is. But back on what I was saying, is not a very clear-cut case when it comes to the election laws. Maybe sometime I'll do a little show on that, and maybe y'all could review that. I want to say a quick hello to C Star, and of course, I want to welcome back Rose Marie Vieira. It's always nice to have you in the chat. All right. Moving on here, we're going to go ahead and talk about this Jeff DiSantis. I want to just kind of give you a brief overview of just what a plant this guy is, how this guy is definitely part of the machine, if you will. It is so clear that this individual, he almost looks odd for this position. You know what I'm saying? Like overqualified. If you're going to work for the DA's office, wouldn't you think you'd be a practicing attorney that's practicing law all the time? That's not what this guy's resume says about him. This guy is obviously a deep state, or well, I tell you what, let's look at his bio that I found online here, and you tell me what you think he is. All right. So here we go. This is his profile picture. Obviously, Jeff DiSantis. He is title currently Deputy District Attorney, Media Relations Division. So he handles media for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office out of Atlanta, Georgia. All right. We got his title. We got his name. Now, here's what it says about him. Jeff DiSantis is the Deputy District Attorney overseeing the Media Relations Unit. In that role, he is responsible for keeping the public informed of the work of the District Attorney and the issues the office is handling that are of importance to the people of Fulton County. Jeff is an attorney whose experience includes working in media relations for government officials and political candidates. He has served on the government staff of the United States Senator Zell Miller. Remember Zell Miller? God rest his soul. He was a great guy, by the way. But he has served with former United States Senator Zell Miller and Georgia Attorney General Thurgood Baker, where he served as the primary media contact for that office. For a year after law school, he served as an intern in the White House Domestic Policy Council during President Bill Clinton's term. This guy knows a few people, right, folks? Jeff has also worked for candidates in 30 states running for a variety of offices, including President of the United States Senator, Governor, United States Representative, Attorney General, District Attorney, Mayor, as well as for a national political party committee. He has served as a campaign manager, media consultant, pollster. I got to take a breath. This guy's got so many titles here, right? Press spokesman, research director, and policy advisor. He also served as the executive director of the Democratic Party of Georgia. All right, moving on. In his private practice, he represented elected office holders, candidates, party committees, and advocacy groups before the regulatory and enforcement agencies, including the Federal Election Commission. The Federal Election Commission. The U.S. House Ethics Committees, the Internal Revenue Service, the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission, and local bodies. He also handled matters for entities regulated by U.S., foreign, and international law related to international trade, transnational financial transactions, and overseas offices and employees. Jeff is a graduate of Emory University of Law and the University of Georgia. Wow. He just sounds like someone they just, came across on a Facebook application, right? And they just put him in that position. Obviously, if this guy is a plant, it's so obvious. This guy is a very well connected political piece of machinery. And I think that's, and I mean, it's fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It's just that if he's more than just the media relations person, this is a huge story. As Donald Trump would say, it's huge. I never mind with that. It is. This. If this is true, if they can prove any of this, wow, this whole thing takes off in an entirely different and new direction. I will follow this particular case. So don't worry about it. I will stay on top of it and we'll see exactly where this goes. Now, let's go to the next thing here. Let me see if there's anything in the comments. I want us to pull up our next little video right here because Megyn Kelly has been all over this, and I want to continue that tradition. She has got a good piece that she made today. Let me check the comments. Bear with me briefly as we go through. Hey, if y'all would do me a favor, I would be much appreciated if y'all would hit the thumbs up button, as it does help the algorithm and helps people find this show if they're looking for anything pertaining to Fani Willis. Michael, I appreciate you hitting the thumbs up button for me on the Facebook. Thank you. Appreciate everybody off all the platforms. Got some folks watching on X. Thank you for the comment off Facebook. And we got our usual friend on Twitter. I appreciate everybody being here. All right. We're going to continue moving on right here, and we'll try to get the comments later. And as I said 2 or 3 times now, if you would like to come on the program this evening, we're going to give it a shot and see how it works out. I think I can have up to 25 people at one time, like 10 live on screen. We'll see how it goes. I want to bring folks on one at a time. And if you have any questions or comments, we can start having a discussion about it. It should be a lot of fun. So let's go ahead. I don't see any pressing questions right now. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. It is definitely appreciated. Let's go ahead and take a look at this next video that we have. Here we go. Now, this is the one attorney I was talking about out of, he works in Cobb County. If my information is correct, I believe he has an office right there off in Cobb County. But of course, when you're an attorney in a particular state, like in the state of Georgia, you can practice in any of the courts. Also, the law community, people know people. You know what I mean? They're all colleagues. They know one another. They may have went to school together. They've had cases together or adversarial. Who knows? But the point is these individuals generally all know each other and they know one another's reputation. And you're right, Kara, that it is huge. That's exactly right. If you can do a good Trump impression today, I like to hear that from anybody. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into this video and we will talk about it as we go through. So let's click it. Here we go.
Attorney-client privilege that he had, at least for some time, with his one-time lawyer, Terrence Bradley. And he has asserted the privilege and said it would be totally inappropriate for Judge McAfee to talk to his lawyer, even behind closed doors and chambers, about anything that was said between the two of them. So has the judge issued a ruling on that motion? And if he has, do we expect Bradley to actually appear in chambers and have the conversation or not?
Yeah, great to be with you again, as always, Megan. Listen, what's going to happen, I think it's at 1:30 Eastern time this afternoon is when this in-camera review is supposed to occur. And all that means is, as you mentioned, it's just behind closed doors. It'll be the judge, Mr. Bradley, his attorney, and the judge's questions. Okay, the judge, ironically, the law sometimes is quirky. The judge has to listen to the evidence and look at those text messages before he can actually decide if he's allowed to look at them. And by that, I mean, if he's allowed to actually use them in making the decision in this case, because he can't evaluate whether or not they are covered by attorney-client privilege unless he knows what they are and how the information was gathered. We talked about this the other day. Lawyers sometimes, when they represent their friends, their business partners, they might know things that are outside the attorney-client relationship. If you pick up something when you're out having beers with your friends or at lunch or things like that, that's not necessarily covered by attorney-client privilege. So the judge has to look at this stuff and find out what is the source of this information, and then he can decide if it's covered by attorney-client privilege. But he's got to look at it before he can officially look at it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's coming this afternoon.
Of course, and if let's say Nathan Wade and Fani Willis went out to dinner or to drinks and they saw Terrence Bradley at the time. That's not privileged. Terrence Bradley can't assert privilege just because he happened to be the lawyer at the time. That would be information that he did obtain via his personal knowledge. Now, he testified he didn't get any info about their relationship from personal knowledge as opposed to via the attorney-client relationship. But this judge clearly by the end of that last Friday hearing had doubts about that assertion. And that's what the judge is going to be looking to test in their private conversation today.
Yeah, and this goes back, if you remember, a couple of filings ago. It's hard to keep it all straight, but Ashley Merchant, who's the attorney for Mr. Roman, the co-defendant in this case, when she first named Terrence Bradley, she said, look, Terrence Bradley is going to come to court. He's got this information that's not privileged, that wasn't gathered in the scope of his representation of Mr. Wade. So she made those representations to the court. And we can infer from the testimony that we've seen that she has text messages. Okay, she has a conversation with Mr. Bradley. Mr. Bradley has confirmed the existence of the text conversation. He has mentioned and talked in court about some of the text messages. So between what he has talked about and what has been listed in the pleadings, we can infer that Bradley has talked about Nathan Wade and Fani Willis and their relationship and when it began, and that it's not helpful to Willis and Wade. And so that's why we see the state fighting tooth and nail to keep this out. The judge actually ruled, I think it was Thursday or Friday, Nathan Wade had filed a motion asking the judge, not to even question Mr. Bradley, but the judge said no, he's going to have to get into that. And so the longer this goes on, the more the state fights to keep this information out. Honestly, in my opinion, the worse it looks for them. Because if you remember, this is really about a conflict of interest and whether or not Fani Willis is making money off this, basically, okay? So the longer it goes on, the more Nathan Wade is paid by the hour. And by the way, prosecutors never get paid by the hour. This is the first I've really ever seen of this, with a couple of small exceptions here in Georgia that were for much, much less per hour. It's like $45 an hour. But the prosecutors don't get paid by the hour. The more they fight, the more they dig, the more the conflict of interest potentially becomes very real.
He's right about that. I'm going to talk soft so I don't blow anybody's eardrums up in case you adjusted your volume. The point, I think that's a good point. I have not heard that before, and he's exactly correct. A lot of times what happens in these type of cases, especially when it comes to criminal law, it's generally not something you pay by the hour. Only in contractual law, this type of thing, would you generally have a fee agreement that's by the hour. Generally, when it comes to criminal attorneys, you walk into their office and you say, hey, here's my problem. The attorney will say, well, give me $6,500. And that takes you to trial or through trial up until the appeal. Then if it's lost, then there would be an extra fee for that if you wanted to go that far. Same thing when they hire a prosecutor such as Nathan Wade. Generally speaking, it would just be a flat rate retainer. That way you're not seeing bills for 24 hours within a 24-hour period. So that's a good point by Holloway here.
And so that's why all of this matters. People are asking me, what about the guilt of the accused? What about those kind of things? Well, we're not there yet. This is about the fairness of the system. If you don't have a fair-minded prosecutor, one who comes into the investigation or the trial of the case without a conflict of interest, if you don't have that kind of fairness, fundamental fairness, you don't have due process. And without due process, you don't have a system.
You can't run right to the trial. I refer people back to the Duke fake rape case back in 2005 and 2006, where there was a corrupt DA who didn't much care whether he had a alleged victim making up lies about the 3 Duke lacrosse players. What Mike Nifong wanted was to win re-election in a minority-majority community, and his pension would go up if he won a re-election one more time. And he decided he had a winner if he pushed this woman's allegations, even though they turned out to be BS. He wound up getting disbarred. He wound up spending a day in jail. So what in that case, if we had followed the logic of the people coming to you now, we would just, what about the guilt of the accused? Let's get right to the trial of these 3 accused guys. No. If there's a corrupt DA prosecuting the case, you have to stop and make sure that corruption is addressed, it's ferreted out, people understand how bad it is, if it exists at all. And that's what's happening right now to make sure there is not a corrupt DA pushing these charges against Trump and all the others. It's completely appropriate to do. And, it would be nice if they would be a little bit more cooperative about forking over information. Now the thing you said about Terrence Bradley brought me to a question. Terrence Bradley definitely texted with Ashley Merchant. There's no question. She showed him a couple of the texts when he was on the stand. He seemed very uncomfortable. He was caught. I mean, I don't know why he texted with Ashley Merchant if he didn't want it coming out, right? But we saw the one where she forwarded him her whole motion to disqualify, saying the affair began back in, way before 2022. And he said, looks good. Who could testify to the affair? And he said, no one's going to burn that bridge. And we appear to be looking at even more. Then he gets up on the stand against his objection, right? He tried to avoid it and said, everything is attorney-client privileged. All my knowledge about their relationship is covered in the attorney-client privilege, and I have no personal knowledge. Now, Phil, that either means that he violated the attorney-client privilege when he spoke to Ashley Merchant, or it means he lied on the stand to the judge. It's one of those two things. There's no other alternative. Am I wrong?
Well, I think you're pretty much right on that, and this is why he looks so uncomfortable. I think and this is why he's really trying his hardest to not have to go down and answer questions, because he's really caught in a trap. Okay, I mean, he's between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, he's got to think about his own reputation and all this. He's got to think about whether or not Nathan Wade is going to make a bar complaint for violating attorney-client privilege, if that's what he did. But remember, Ashley Merchant was very sure that the text messages and the things that he would testify to were not actually covered by attorney-client privilege. So, he's kind of between a rock and a hard place. He doesn't know if he needs
put himself
to accept
there.
That.
He put himself
doesn't know
there.
if he needs to.
You and I both know as lawyers, if somebody texted you saying, Phil, what about all that secret stuff your client told you? You would respond saying, I can't reveal that to you. It's covered by attorney-client privilege.
Right.
Much as I'd love to share with you, go knock on somebody else's door. This guy gave it up. He clearly gave it up to Ashley Merchant. And I'm going to give this man who I don't know the benefit of the doubt and say he did that because he did have personal knowledge. I mean, most attorneys absolutely know you do not violate attorney-client privilege, period. I mean, it's just grilled in you from the first day of law school. So I believe that this guy would know not to do that. And he probably gave it up because he did have personal knowledge. And then by the time he got on the stand, he was scared.
I think that's exactly right. As I pointed out earlier, I think originally when Ashley Merchant contacted this Terrence Bradley, she wanted to go ahead, or I should say he wanted to go ahead and throw Nathan Wade under the bus. He was mad about the fact he had to leave the firm. And then once he gave the information he gave to Ashley Merchant, he even was stupid enough, let's just call it what it is. He was stupid enough to put it in a text message, and that way Ashley Merchant could impeach him with it on the stand when he all but denied that he had any relevant information that he could disclose to the court. So it is what it is. Sometimes when you're angry and you act out of retribution, it can cause you to get hung yourself.
Yeah, this is a big case, obviously. And this is the kind of thing where sometimes people may say things, they may do things, they may text things and not really think about how this may come out later. But we all tell our clients, first thing you do is don't talk. Okay, keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. And the reverse is also true. As lawyers, the less we talk about our clients' cases, the better off we're going to be. And so he is between that rock and a hard place. I hate to repeat myself, but I really don't know any other way to put it. I think that he wants to get in that room and
he could say he's screwed. That would be a good way to
get
put
out
it.
as fast as he can. He's probably hoping that the judge asks him as little as possible. Nevertheless, he's going to have to answer questions from the judge, and the judge is going to use whatever he learns today. The judge is going to use that, Megan, as a basis for determining what comes next, because as of right now, they're scheduled for closing arguments on this hearing on Friday. But the Trump team, of course, is asking for the evidence to be reopened. I've got sources who are telling me that other defendants may be weighing in on that because I think they're sharing the cell data. So we may see other filings. But we don't know if Friday is going to be closing argument or if it's going to be more evidence. But in any event, the judge can't make that decision until after he hears from Bradley. And if he decides that these text messages are not covered by, attorney-client privilege. And by the way, there's a good argument that Nathan Wade has waived any attorney-client privilege because his prosecution team said Ashley Merchant was a liar. They said she had no good faith basis for even going here with these things. And so she's, I think, entitled to rebut that. And so if the judge says, no, this is something she can get into, we've got to reopen the evidence so that this can come out in open court and on the record.
That is some excellent commentary by Mr. What's his name, Holloway. That was right on the mark. Folks, it's as simple as this. Whenever you have an attorney-client privilege with someone and your lawyer speaks to someone else, they run the risk of piercing that attorney-client shield. If I'm putting it bluntly, that is borderline, well, it is malpractice. An attorney should simply say, I can't talk about that. He's an attorney. Ashley Merchant is an attorney. And this Bradley guy should have known, hey, I can't discuss this with you. This is privilege. My guess is that he was so mad towards Nathan Wade, he went ahead and started spilling some of the goodies. We've all been there where you're mad at somebody and you think, oh, well, this is a good time to get a little revenge, right? It can be a serious problem. And as he just pointed out, if you remember back from the hearing, Ashley Merchant was specifically under the gun, so to speak, by, I think it was Cross, Ms. Cross, one of the prosecution attorneys for the DA Fani Willis's office. She all but said that Ashley Merchant is a liar, that she should never have put this forth. As a matter of fact, she said that Ashley Merchant should be brought up on sanctions, and sanctions are basically a fine, a penalty that the judge can impose if you do something wrong. Hypothetically, if she brought a case or brought a motion that was clearly not allowed, it was clearly unfounded, and it is such a bad situation that the court has no other reason or has no other choice but to fine via sanctions the lawyer that did such and such. Well, then at that point they would sanction her. But the point is, now that they brought it up, it's called opening the door. And just like it sounds, once you open the door, they can walk right through it, whether it's attorney-client privilege or whatever, because she has a right to defend herself and her client. It's really just that simple. A couple notes I want to take away from there. And then I want to give everybody a heads up, by the way. I'm going to give a link in just a few moments here. So I want everybody I'm copying the link right now. When you see this link, if you like to join the conversation, again, make sure you're on a Chrome browser. You have a microphone that works well, and you have a camera. You could use your cell phone if you're so inclined. You can just have like an earpiece like I got right here for my phone, or you can use your regular laptop computer. But this link will come to you. It's actually, I'm going to put it in the chat. They say don't do that, but I don't care. If it fills up, it fills up. And essentially, you'll pop on my screen, and then I just have to click to let you in. And if you are lucky enough to be chosen or you like to chat, feel free to do so. I would like to give this a try and see how this works out. But we'll talk about that more in a second. While you're waiting for that link, and I'll be dumping it in here in just a minute, I want to make just a few comments. Folks, Fulton County is corrupt, and it has a history of corruption. I'm not saying every politician there is corrupt, but there's a history of corruption. Even with Martin Luther King Jr., we all know who he is. You may or may not know that had it not been for former President John F. Kennedy, the one, of course, that was assassinated, John F. Kennedy, back in 62, 63, there would not really have been an MLK as far as we know him today because of the corruption in Fulton County. They basically took MLK and locked him away in prison. And the idea was they just were not going to let him out because he was too much of a troublemaker in their eyes. I believe 2 or 3 years ago, the Fulton County Board or whomever's in charge of these type things issued a formal apology to the estate of MLK and to his family. Had it not been for the president, or JFK at the time, basically picking up the phone and saying, hey, you need to get my boy out of there, we may not have had the good fortune of having MLK Jr. So just want to let you know that this is not something that's abstract. This is something that's been going on for a long time in America, in American politics, and definitely in Fulton County, Georgia. And Fani Willis and Nathan Wade are just the next individuals in a long line of people that, let's just say, they have challenges that they need to work on. Another thing I want to mention to you is the United States is one of the only major industrial countries that allows a solicitor, a district attorney, the power to just arbitrarily say, hey, I'm going to wreck this person's life. I'm going to go ahead and bring the full power of the state and or federal government on top of this person right now. I'm about to crush their lives. It's really an awesome power that someone has. Up until now, we have basically always trusted our elected leaders, our appointed leaders, whatever, the people with this type of power to use what we call prosecutorial discretion. That's what they're supposed to use. Their discretion as a person. Does it feel right that they should bring charges? Are they reasonably, I mean, it's more than reasonably, are they sure this person has committed a crime in their heart based on the evidence, based on their due diligence of checking into a particular case? That's no longer the reality. We need a change. We need to have a system similar to what they have maybe in Israel. I don't know exactly what the position is described as or what their official title is, but before you bring charges, most developed countries in the world, you have to go to an individual, and their sole function in government is to act as a check and balance. So this type of thing that's happening to former President Donald Trump in New York State, and of course here in Fulton County, Georgia, and in a few other places, cannot happen in Israel. It's really just that simple. They basically serve as just a barrier, just a protective barrier to make sure politics is not entering a prosecution. Their job is to make sure a prosecution does not become a persecution. It's really just that simple. So let me go ahead and drop this link in here, and you can start joining up as it goes. Let me see. Okay, here's the link. You should have instructions. If not, I have instructions I can send everyone. But feel free to click on that link, and you can join the conversations if you're so inclined. And if you have comments or questions, please put them in the chat. Also, I've had a couple of people that have essentially, I've seen one or two in there. I forgot the individual's name, but you don't have to agree with the way I think or the way I put my comments. You can be a detractor. You just have to be professional and polite. I seen one individual in there that had some, let's just say, some counter comments. Get on the camera here, join up, and let's chat. And you can go ahead and make your point known, and we can have a calm, adult-like, honest discussion of the facts, and we can just go from there. So anyway, if you're so inclined, feel free to pop into the chat, and I'd be happy to chat with you. All right. So we discussed the need that we have some kind of barrier between the prosecution, between a solicitor's office, and someone actually being arrested, taken into custody, and having their life messed up. The other thing that I want to briefly touch on is it's important to point out the obvious. I don't know if anybody has thought about this. Isn't it odd that in this particular hearing, there is no jury? There's just a judge. We call it the trier effect, That basically means who is the person going to make a decision on this case. Most of the time, it's a jury in a criminal context. It's basically 12 men and women that sit in front of you and they judge you. That's basically what we see in the United States. Now, the trier effect can also be the judge. You can opt to allow a judge to hear your case. I believe you can do it in criminal. Well, I know you can do it in criminal matters, and you can do it definitely in civil cases. As a matter of fact, a lot of business professionals prefer a judge because in their mind, in a civil context, they're thinking, well, the judge is going to go by the letter of the law. the judge will understand from a business perspective, how things work. So it's basically something that an attorney will consult with their client on before they decide who's going to be the trier of fact. But in this particular case, it's extremely important that everybody understands that. And it's kind of weird. Okay. So he's going behind the doors, in camera with somebody to have, to look in camera at these text messages. So follow me here now, okay? I don't want to lose anybody. The judge is going to take the phone. He's going to look through these text messages. But it's weird because the judge is the trier of fact, and he's trying to figure out, did Fani Willis and Nathan Wade lie about, among other things, did they lie about having a relationship that is an adult relationship prior to November 1st, 2021, among other issues he's trying to figure out. Well, if he comes across a text message on Bradley's phone, and let's just pretend the text message from Nathan to Fani says something like, "Oh, baby, I enjoyed hitting that today, or last night. Thank you so much," whatever. He has to decide, is that attorney-client privilege? Is it proper that he has access to that text message? In other words, under the rules of evidence, would it be allowed to come in? And only then, if he decides that it can come in or that Bradley can testify concerning that text message, then he can consider it as part of the evidence when he decides as the trier of fact as to whether or not Ashley Merchant and the other defense attorneys have proved their case that Fani Willis, Nathan Wade have committed perjury or had a relationship prior to this case commencing. If there is a fraud on the court that's taken place, all these things has to be decided by the same man that has access to all the information, but he's got to decide what he can consider and what he can't consider. Does that make any sense? It's really weird, isn't it? Normally, when it's a jury that's hearing the case and there's an in-camera proceeding, the jury is not invited to the in-camera proceeding because it's in the judge's chamber, and the judge will decide what is allowed to be heard by the jury and what is not. But in the case of a judge, that's just really weird. But that's our system. And if you think about it, it would be difficult to do something else. I guess theoretically, in my mind, I'm thinking about it. I guess if you had an in-camera decision, you could have another judge that makes those decisions in camera, and then it goes back to Scott McAfee in this particular case after the other judge rules. But I don't know. It's like this, folks. When it comes to human beings running something, nothing is ever perfect. Let's just be straight up and honest about it, and that's just the way it goes. It's not. That shouldn't surprise you. It shouldn't surprise me. So I think that is. I have a list of like 4 or 5 different things that I think would make our court system just spot on and absolutely perfect. So does anybody, while I'm looking real quick before we move on to the next time, anybody want to join, have a comment, make a chat? Okay. I know it's a little embarrassing sometimes to come into a conversation and talk in front of other people. So at any rate, if you decide to pop in. And if you decide not to today, that's okay. I realize it's short notice. It's it's a little embarrassing maybe sometimes talk in front of a bunch of people. We have just over 100 and some people right now, so it's not a whole lot of people. In the future, I think I'll continue to offer that if you like to come on and make a comment or just ask a question, whatever the deal is. So in the future, you might want to be prepared to join via phone or whatever, and you can join the conversation accordingly. I love to always have questions, and I want to have a conversation with everybody. That's the number one thing I want to do, is have a conversation. I just don't want to sit down and be a talking head where I'm just blah, blah, blah. Don't get me wrong. I don't have no problem doing that, but I would much rather chat, have a two-way conversation back and forth with everybody. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut it right now. At this point, I may or may not come back later. If nothing else, Lord willing, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll pick it up where we left off. But I wanted you to have this breaking news of a plant inside DA Fani Willis's offices by President Joe Biden. Absolutely outrageous. It's just nuts. So I always say, folks, keep that mind free, never give up. And until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.